Welcome back to the HBA of Northwest Michigan Building Better Podcast. Please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in being a guest or sponsoring this awesome podcast, please reach out to the team at the HBA because we would love to have you. We're always looking for ideas for our episodes and things of interest that the community and the membership might want to know about. So let us know how we're doing. Today, I am joined by Dane Englert, owner of the Ferraro Group, and your HBA First Vice President. Welcome, Dane.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on today. One of the things that we're doing this year is the HBA has partnered with the Traverse City Business News, and we are bringing you every month an article sponsored by the HBA that allows us to share the ins and outs of the residential construction industry, the different factors that we're facing as builders and homeowners, and just really, telling our side of the story and what's so cool about this profession. Our first article is in this month's issue, March issue, and was written by yours truly, wasn't it?
Yes, thank you very much. It's titled Blue Horizons, Bright Futures, and it's all about the blue economy, and particularly about owning waterfront property and how you can get be a part of that. It's a good investment, and
it's one of the things that is so special about our community. I know when I traveled downstate to go to school, I felt like every direction I was walking in, I should run into water because we're so spoiled up here. In any direction that we look or travel, we're running into water. And it's intuitive to think yes, it's more valuable. It's obviously scarce. It's more scarce. And what did you uncover when you were researching this? Because I know you had some data that supported the value of waterfront.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at property values, you can see that waterfront property, because it's more desirable, people like it. There's usually bigger houses on waterfront property. You get the nice views and you get a private beachfront. Yeah. So that's pretty valuable to people. So they tend to sell for a higher price. So we did some research on the median home sales price. I'm sorry, the average. So the mean home sales price between
You're taking me back to high school stats there.
2023 to 2024, and the average sale price of all the homes that were sold in the county, Grand Traverse County, had jumped about 14% from 2023 to 2024. So that's the average.
That's a pretty good return on your investment there.
Yeah, 14% for waterfront property we found, and 4% for the other properties that sold, non-waterfront property, as a feature.
Yeah. And we did reach out to our membership and spoke to some of the realtors that are members in the HBA. Matt Gieb from Viewpoint Realty was very helpful in providing some data that supported this to help us tell our story. Not only is it valuable and just it's a whole way of life, but it comes with its own challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple points that I'd like to make about the trade-offs. So you have the more valuable property, but there's also some things that come along with that. And one of them would be water.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Well, and it's coming at you not only from, the lakes in front of you, the rivers, the streams, but you've got groundwater, and then typically some higher precipitation levels too from a weather standpoint.
That's right. So you could have in some locations, you could have a higher groundwater table. So that could limit your basement to a crawl space. Mm-hmm. You're always wanting to keep those crawl spaces dry. So we've done a lot of remodels where we've what they call encapsulation. So they're turning a vented crawl space into a conditioned crawl space, and that's the current building science right now, we don't build vented crawl spaces anymore.
That's right.
So we seal them up and we condition it so that your HVAC would have a vent down there and a return. And that way you have a tighter building envelope and you get some of the benefits of the heat coming from the ground. But
Right.
the encapsulation will keep it dry and make it it's not the old dirty like spider web crawl spaces
You're
anymore.
still not going to find me down there. I'm going to throw that
Yeah.
out there. I'm still not, I'm not your crawl space girl. Maybe you can call Dane.
Got that. The other water thing to think about is a waterfront property can get a lot more weather, especially if it's on Lake Michigan. And especially if you're...
It depends on what side of the lake you're on, too. Leeward, wayward.
Exactly. If you're a sailor, you might know the difference between leeward or windward.
Windward.
Yes. So
I'm wayward, maybe.
So when you're thinking about the land, being on the leeward side would be where the wind is going. And so the leeward side of... maybe I'm saying this wrong. The leeward side of a peninsula would be protected. The windward side
is the one that, so if we're thinking about like Old Mission Peninsula, along Peninsula Drive, that is your windward side. Yes. And on the other side, East Bay Boulevard, Center Road, that's your leeward side.
That's correct.
Sunrise, sunset, right? Or opposite of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in our remodels recently, we have changed some doors and windows on lakefront property. One on the Lake Michigan. This was on the Leelanau Peninsula, and basically we haven't opened up a wall on waterfront side that hasn't been rotted.
Yeah, that I believe that. So, and we've changed our building science and our building technology quite a bit. Water is the enemy of any house, and we have participated in a very snowy winter, but we have experienced higher than normal, or maybe back to the good old days of snowfall this year. And many of our members are receiving calls related to water coming in the house. And your snow management on your roof is as important as the snow management on the ground, because that can build up, and what is developed is water dams, and there can be hundreds of gallons of water that's held up behind that water dam, and it's got to go somewhere. So it forces its way into your roof, whether you have a new roof that summer or the previous season, or you've had a roof on that house for 20 years. I heard from many of our roofers this season that have been battling that, and the average homeowner doesn't understand that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Lauren. There's a product called ice and water that is laid down on the roof deck underneath the shingles. And that is to protect what they call ice damming, with the ice working its way up underneath the shingles. But you're right about water management. We used to talk about building envelope that is watertight, but over time that's nearly impossible. So we tend to think of it as water management. So it's gonna rain, water. It's gonna be you're gonna get driving rain, and so where's that water gonna go? And so we like to create pathways for that water to work its way down and out. Down and out and away from your house. So behind sidings, there's a product called a rain screen, or a type of product called a rain screen, that provides a little bit of air between the siding and the sheeting, and that allows for that rain to wash down. So, have you ever heard the old saying of hanging a siding, or that siding used to be hung. It's not really meant to be nailed tight because it likes to have a little air gap behind there.
Yeah, we have such a variance in our temperatures and our climate, so like it can expand and contract, and it has to be able to move. Otherwise, it would break.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So providing a little space behind the siding with a rain screen or similar product helps the water move out.
Yeah. And there are other systems that have been developed over the years that are pretty cool. It's not just about gutters. It's about gutter shields, and there's heated gutters in certain systems. Depending on the design of your home and how complex it is, you may need those, and especially on a larger, more detailed waterfront property, those are things that are being included.
Yeah, we're working on a project right now that had some significant rot on East Bay, and that remodel from 25 years ago now didn't include any gutters, and so we're changing the doors because the sliding doors because they got rotted out, and just a couple of rather inexpensive gutters would have saved that homeowner a lot of expense to not have the rot needing to be replaced of the siding and around the doors.
That's one of the things that, as a builder, you talk about with your customer ahead of time and help prepare them for the things that are needed to preserve the property for long term. I know that like housing, residential construction costs what it costs today, and really your basics are going to be expensive, and fit and finish is what changes the level of how expensive. But there's certain things that just shouldn't be skipped, including gutters. Like it's a smaller investment that can pay off and save you a lot of money, including also different energy techniques that you can use too that'll help you save money over time. Now, I've heard you say a couple times on remodel, that touches on something that anyone who's looking at waterfront property should be considering. There's not a lot of raw land on the water, is there?
That's right. I think Northern Michigan took advantage of a lot of the boom times and people that made money in Detroit or whatever industry downstate in some of the bigger cities. There's a lot of summertime cottages, hunting cottages, fishing cottages up here. And those cottages, I'm sure it's been happening for a while, but it seems recently we've seen a lot of turnover to family members. And they want to keep these cottages in the family, but they're really not, they're great. And not so.
They're not so great.
Yeah, they're really great, but maybe the later generations aren't. It's not so comforable for later generations.
They're not interested in roughing it as much as
That's exactly.
as our previous generations. I can remember, going to my friends' family cottages, and you walk in, and it has that special smell. Mm-hmm. You're sleeping on beds that are like older than grandma, like all kinds of stuff, and the heating systems and electrical and everything like that needs to be updated. Along with that, I mean, there can be really great stories behind those, and I'm sure that you've found some really unique items too.
Yeah, I had a customer that it was a family cottage. Her great uncle and dad and grandparents, and they all like pitched in together, and they have some pictures from the 70s and 60s and some black and white pictures, and the whole family's there, and they've had such a great time. What we were able to do on this particular cottage, and she has a story of, speaking of roughing it, she's like, Dad used to tell us to wave at the mice that were looking down at us while we were sleeping up in the rafters.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, my grandkids won't do that. They won't stay here. They won't even come
either. I mean, I think they're a little soft, but here I am. I don't want to sleep with mice either. I don't.
Yeah. So this was only a summer cabin. We're trying to make it more comfortable for them. So in order to save the interior aesthetics and the cabin feel and the rough feel of it, we took off the board and batten siding that were old oak, heavy as heck boards.
Yeah.
We took it off and insulated from the outside so that we didn't have to mess with the inside.
Yeah.
Old wood paneling. So that was kind of a neat thing. And then on another remodel on Long Lake, this particular one had an old Michigan chimney and fireplace that was built out of
those are
Michigan
so cool.
granite. Yeah, and someone had scribed in it 1923. So that chimney was built in 1923, and we were redoing the floor, and we pulled up the floorboards that were sitting on the ground and rotting away. And underneath it, we found some old beer bottles from Prohibition times out of Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And then also this little kid's toy. Someone had carved a little boat, and it still had the string on it.
That is so cool.
And so we gave that to the customer as a present at the end of the project, and it's sitting on their mantle right now. So
yeah,
that's pretty neat.
We had an old house that was on a lake when Mike and I first got married on Vandervoort over in the Arbutus Triangle off of Hobbs Highway. And when we opened the breezeway up, because this is a house that was like a one-room cottage, then it grew over time. There was a horseshoe and a really old bottle of bourbon, and we still have those. Like, those are keepsakes. That's something that's really cool. And I bet those beer bottles from Chicago were neat. I mean, there's been rumors, and I think there is some fact to this, but the Long Lake was Al Capone's hangout in the 1930s.
Yeah, I've heard that the casino, the slot machines are at the bottom of the lake somewhere. So our customer was a big Chicago Bears fan, so he really liked the Chicago beer bottles.
That is super neat. Yeah. I think that there are some really remarkable projects and properties on Long Lake that have some of that history. And as a builder, you guys get to really live those stories in real time. That's neat.
Yeah, this one was a really neat one. Our customer was going back and forth with their family about whether to tear it down and rebuild new or to do a substantial remodel. And they, rightly so, kind of hemmed and hawed and really thought about what was important to them. And right next door, there's a brand new big house, and they ended up wanting to go with the remodel. So we did a large addition and redid the kitchen, and upstairs and added on. But we were able to keep some of the
charm.
Yeah, the charm of the cottage. And frankly, because we didn't move that portion closer to the lake, we were able to keep that building envelope because they are that area, the footprint. There you go. Yeah. Because they didn't move it, and it wouldn't have passed the current setback codes, but because they didn't move it, They were so that's something to consider when you're thinking about remodeling or building new. Now it's like 50 feet usually from the ordinary high water mark.
There's a lot that's changed since the 30s and how we approach waterfront property and protecting the environment and things like that. So, like, things to consider when you're building on the water is the site-specific challenges like that. I know Jen and Pat Bard from Platinum Construction and Design, they entered a home in the Parade of Homes last year in 24 that was a remodel on Bass Lake, and they ran into several challenges, but through clear communication and creative thinking, they were able to also preserve that house and still achieve what their customer wanted. So it's finding the right person that's willing to take on the extra challenges that go along with waterfront. Material selection is important. The environmental regulations, especially with the Great Lakes being deemed as part of the International Waterway. So like now those fall under different jurisdiction. And then, maximizing your views and energy efficiency by how you place that home on that lot. Those are things that are definitely. Did I miss anything?
Maybe another challenge. You haven't missed anything. Something to add would be another challenge with a waterfront property, or something to consider, is that you want to have most of the glazing on the water side, right, to take advantage of the views. But sometimes that isn't always the desire for energy efficiency or comfort of the home. So those are some other things to consider. So, for instance, in the summer, that the glazing also provides solar gain and heat. Mm-hmm. And so if it's a western facing towards the lake and a lot of western facing glazing, then maybe a longer overhang could help shade some of that, or a pergola or some type of shading for the glazing to provide some of the cooling in the hot summer, but you still get the views.
Yeah, that's interesting. And glazing for us laymen you're talking about windows, right?
Yes, talking about windows. Yeah, absolutely.
I learn so much every time I sit and talk with our builders, enough to be dangerous, I guess I would say. But that's absolutely true. And then considering like colors that you're using on your house, like, cause, like your decking will absorb that heat too and become very hot. Yeah, lots of things that go into waterfront. And if you're in the market, you're thinking about doing this, it's always a good idea to check with the local township office to figure out what the local zoning says. There's obviously some overarching state regulations related to environment that come into play, but they should know that at the office. And then again, working with a licensed, insured, and experienced builder like an HBA member, they can help you through that process, even if there are challenges, because I'll tell you what, it's worth it, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, just imagine yourself sitting on the deck and a quiet lake and the waves are lapping and you're enjoying your favorite drink with your friends and family. I mean, those are memories that that's northern Michigan. I mean, that's kind of why we're all up here,
that's
right?
That's why we're here. We were lucky enough to obtain a waterfront property several years ago. We wouldn't be able to do it now. So count myself super lucky. And I'll tell you what, like we won't leave. It's incredible. We fish every day in the summer, and even on days where they're shaking the snow globe, it's incredible to sit there and just look at the beauty and the wildlife. Although I would argue that it's not so quiet in the summer. There's a lot of activity on the lakes, but again, it's totally worth it. When they all leave in the evening or these fringe seasons, it's pretty great.
Yeah, maybe some of those boats should have mufflers.
Yeah, it's incredible how loud they are. Or like the guys that blare their Taylor Swift as they're flying around. They say it's because of the kids, but I don't know. Sometimes I don't see the kids on the boat. But the rest of us get to enjoy right along with them. Well, Dane, I can't thank you enough for helping me with our first article in the Business News. That was incredible to have your collaboration. You did a great job. It was super thoughtful and insightful. And it was great to be able to follow up and more in depth here, because I think people will like that. That's a lot of good information that was shared, and I appreciate you for that. The last question I really like to ask people is, like, you've been a member of the HBA pretty much since you arrived here in Traverse City to purchase that company. What's your favorite thing about the HBA?
My favorite thing about the HBA is the connections. So we had our home expo, and really meeting new people, meeting people that are wanting to move up here, people that already live up here and are thinking about buying a house. We had a great turnout with the vendors, and so really those connections with the people are what's important. I mean, you can't do it without people. You really need a team, and you need a team of people that you can trust and you can rely on, and that's how buildings get done.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're only building houses for people, and people use them. So that's what I like about the HBA.
I love that, and I've heard you say that before, and I think that gets lost a lot, especially when we're showcasing properties. It's the people that live there that make it worthwhile. And recently, our national chairman, Carl Harris, addressed the Senate talking about the American dream of home ownership for all Americans, and that's what we fight for here at the HBA. And thank you for being a part of it. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, one last thing. I used to work for the U.S. Green Building Council, and our CEO one time said in a meeting, and then this was the policy later. He said, "If I ever see another project picture without people in it, it's getting canceled." So
I love that.
So he said, "We build buildings for people, and that's really important." So we stopped showcasing any kind of projects that were just empty, without people. So I took that to heart, and we just focused on the utility of the buildings. It's about the utility and people enjoying the buildings that we build.
That's awesome. And thanks for reminding us of that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, we are always looking for sponsors to keep this going. And we'll see you next time.